Hey, I'm Erin Kottman, founder of Erin Kottman Teacher Development, and I'm passionate about transforming education. With over a decade of experience in education and instructional leadership, I've dedicated my career to empowering educators to reach their full potential. At ECTD, we specialize in providing the support and training that schools and districts nationwide need to create a culture of coaching that enables educators to be effective and at the top of their game. Our mission is simple: to strengthen school leaders and educators to improve classroom performance. Join me on this daily journey of transformation. Together, we can spark the change that educators and students truly deserve.
Welcome to a new episode of Next Level Coaching with Erin Kottman, where we talk about all things instructional leadership, instructional coaching, school leadership, and just how to do this whole educator thing successfully. This is episode 2, and we are going to be talking about the neuroscience of coaching. And I'm going to just warn, I am not a brain expert, but after 15 years in education and leadership and teaching, I know that the brain is a powerful thing. So we're going to talk about the brain today and how you can use the brain to impact your coaching. So first, let's be on the same page and define this whole thing, right? So let's talk about neuroscience, okay? Let's make sure we're all on the same page. I'm reading so I don't mess it up. So neuroscience is the study of the brain and the nervous system, and it offers insight into how we learn and process information and how we also change behavior. And as a coach, what are we constantly trying to do? Change behavior and impart and help teachers do new learning, right? So neuroscience, we are all actually kind of like brain scientists, I guess, if we want to think about it in a way, right? So we're going to talk about neuroscience and how we can use it to impact coaching over time, right? So the other key concept that I want you guys to know, and I'm going to read again, guys, is neuroplasticity. Okay, that is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. Meaning, our brain, even as an older human being, is still adding new information and forming new information into our brains. That's key as a coach, because what do I often hear in schools? They're a veteran, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, they don't want to learn. No. They may not have the will part, but their brain actually is very much wired to be adding new information to it, okay? So as a coach, it's really clear that we understand that the brain actually is primed and ready for our teachers to add new information and new skills. So the first thing I want to think about is when we're thinking about how to use brain science in order to impact our coaching, the first thing is you want to be able to create psychological safety. And so like when we are coaching someone, there is a level of vulnerability that is present. And when we do not, as coaches, create a safe place for someone to learn and add new skills, we're bumping up against like sensitive territory. A teacher has to be, especially a veteran teacher, has to be able to be vulnerable to say, I don't know how to do this thing. I'm unclear of what you're asking me. I'm feeling possibly defeated, and now you're coming in, and that's rubbing up against maybe some pride and ego things that I'm, right? Because I want to always be seen as a professional. So as a coach, you have to provide psychological safety in your coaching sessions in order for the brain to be able to add that new skill. If my brain is in fight and flight mode, it's going to be impossible for me to add the new skill that you're asking of me. So a coach has to be able to read the room. I have to be able to have done intentional relationship building with you continuously. If I've gone into a classroom of post-observation and it's been a rough one, I may have a plan for that coaching conversation that I need to put on the back burner because I'm seeing a teacher in front of me who's struggling, and so their brain is not in a place to receive new information or a new skill. We actually undo psychological safety if I were to continue to barrel through the rest of that meeting to check off my to-do list. versus, hey, is this teacher in the brain space to be able to receive what I'm telling them? Another key concept is thinking about the power of repetition. If you've ever played a sport, you constantly were doing something in repetition, right? So my son, he plays a lot of different sports, and one of the sports that he plays is karate. He's in martial arts. That's one of the things he does. And they will constantly just kick over and over and over and over again. They're kicking so that his body and his brain will start to piece together what it feels like, right, to do the move correctly. It's no different as a coach when I'm wanting someone's brain to make the connection of the skill that I'm giving. So if I'm, let's take it real like foundational teaching, right? If I'm doing good old square up and scan the room, if I tell a teacher, hey, you got to square up and scan the room, they're not going to understand what I'm saying. It's important for me then as the coach say, all right, let's get up and practice it. I'm going to have you stand up in your classroom. I'm going to put you where you normally would stand, and we're going to practice scanning the room to see if students are on task or not. That's building that brain muscle for me, right? So repetition should be a key lever as a coach that I'm constantly pulling from. And the key thing with that too, like little tidbit, kids love repetition. Kids love, right? We do this as teachers. We'll have kids repeat a sentence. We'll have kids reread a passage multiple times. We'll have kids, we'll make a song and we'll have them repeat the song, right? That's repetition. And we're doing it to build, right, that neuroplasticity in their brain. And it's the same exact thing. We just sometimes don't think that adults need it when they do. Another piece is storytelling. So stories allow for, the brain connects easily to stories. So I once had a principal who he was really good at storytelling, and he would use a theme or story at the top of the school year, and then he would carry it throughout the rest of the school year. And it was used not necessarily to teach us something new, but to help us understand what he expected of us that year. But the repetition of seeing and hearing that same story and image throughout the year, it's stuck in my brain. Years later, I'm still able to reference that. So if you're thinking about how to invest someone in coaching, or you want to explain to them, hey, here's a new strategy, root it in a story. Tell a story as a coach. Hey, in my classroom, I used this thing, I used this strategy, and here was the impact for my students, right? As a leader, I may say, hey, like this year we are really working on excellence. So I may tell a story of a student that we all know who would be impacted by our excellence, right? So when you tell a story, that allows the brain to connect to that, okay? Let's also think about the idea, and I know we hear it all the time, but like growth mindset, but growth mindset, we will say growth mindset, but we don't do growth mindset, right? We will say, oh, you have to have a growth mindset, but we don't do growth mindset. If you can connect the idea that your brain is literally able to add new skills and grow even at your big age, right? That is the science piece that will maybe bring in some of your teachers who are on the fence. The next tidbit for using brain science is growth mindset. I know you're probably rolling your eyes, right? Because we use growth mindset a ton in schools. We talk about it with students, with parents, with teachers, right? But imagine being able to now say that growth mindset is connected to brain development, right? To be able to say to teachers, no, like actually your brain is primed and ready to add new skills and understandings. Part of that is also saying then, as a coach or a leader, that means I celebrate and lift up growth and improvement, not just success all the time. And so if I'm able to tie that to the brain, also then with how I talk about growth mindset, I'm able to help a teacher to understand that growth mindset is more than just like a saying, but that your brain actually can do this thing. And so at that point, there's no really, the skill piece isn't there, like, right, isn't the issue. It's really a will thing at that point, because your brain actually can add to its toolkit easily. The next thing I want you guys to also think about is, how are you incorporating visual aids in your coaching? So I'm a visual learner, 1,000%. I will learn something and pick something up faster with a visual cue than I will by you just verbalizing something to me. And so the brain really benefits from some sort of visual cue. I think about, this is a silly example, but it actually had an impact because the teacher that I'm thinking about, it talks about it a lot. I had a young teacher who just was kind of like struggling with classroom management, but also was missing out on like the fun parts, right? And I think it just came from the idea of like, I just really want to do a good job. So he was kind of like extremely strict. He's actually going to be on the show at some point, so we'll talk about this. And one day as a coach, I printed out huge smiley faces and I put them on the perimeter of his room. And because every time he looked at them, I wanted him to have the mental thought to go, smile, it's okay. Like, I'm doing a good job, it's okay. And he hated them at first, but he talks to this day about how they actually really worked for him, because he would look up and teach and see them and go, and just smile a little bit more, relax a little bit more. And I needed him to do that because he was already a great teacher, but there was a disconnect with kids because of his inability to kind of have some like joyful teaching in there. So it's a small example, but visual aids will help a teacher to be able to make connections a lot faster. Even when I think about, a second ago when I was talking about storytelling and how I had that school leader who was really good at it, one of the images he used one year was a bundle of sticks. The story behind it was that like you can easily break a stick, but a bundle of sticks is going to be very difficult to break. You can't break it. And so the visual he would use throughout the school year was this bundle of sticks to represent our staff, right? My brain is able to recall the lesson there from a visual aid. So don't miss out on thinking about visual aids and where they could also be a part of your coaching and development of others. Lastly, guys, I want you to think about active participation. So as a coach, when I'm thinking about adult facilitation, I'm constantly thinking about how adults learn. And one of the ways that adults learn is through actual active participation and application. So if I've got an hour-long PD session after school, I promise you I'm giving you no more than like 7 to 10 minutes of new information before the rest of that time we're actually in application and applying. Whether that's, maybe we're looking at a case study, maybe we're discussing something, maybe we're getting up and moving around the room, maybe we're pulling up an upcoming lesson plan and we're applying it there. But I have to be an active participant in the learning for my brain to actually make the connection and form the new idea. If you are talking at me, again, this sounds crazy sometimes because it's all the things we know about kids, but for some reason we don't carry it over and apply it to adults, right? So if I'm thinking as a coach, I can't sit and have a 30-minute coaching meeting with someone or an hour-long coaching meeting with someone and the majority of the time I'm talking at them and they're not doing any application. That has to be the key movement there. So when you're thinking about your coaching meetings, when you're thinking about your professional development, how much time, what is the ratio? We always talk about teacher talk ratio, right? What is the ratio between how often I am giving new information to an adult learner and how much I'm actually asking them to apply the learning that they're having? I think that brain science is like a really interesting tool as a coach. I'm excited to learn more about it. I hope in the comments, if you have used brain science in your coaching, that you will leave some additional resources and tips for our whole community. But I think you've got to, as a coach, be able to consider how do you get people bought into a culture of coaching, because that's what this whole thing is about. And for some people, the brain science part is going to be the hook that they need to be interested in this culture of coaching that you're trying to build. I hope that you enjoyed episode 2. Again, my name is Erin Kottman. Please make sure that you subscribe and leave a review or comment, and I'll see you guys next time.